3D or not 2D? That is the question. This is the Dreamer's Edge. We've been talking a little bit about 3D for a while, promising a podcast amongst ourselves, completely stalling, trying to come up with what we think about it. And I'm Chris, subtitle editor and occasional writer.
Hi, I'm Frank. I work in a public library.
I'm Eric, high school teacher.
I'm Dimitri, webmaster of DreamersEdge.com and movie critic. So let's start right away with something I like to call show and tell, and that's when we give you some of our recommendations, and this time it's going to be recommendations in 3D.
Gorilla at Large, 1954. Absolutely the greatest 3D movie ever made. Not just because it takes place in a circus or it has a gorilla, but...
Although those are two good reasons.
It played on CTV long ago. I wore the glasses. I watched the entire movie.
Wait, you had glasses ready when you were watching CTV?
Oh, they were selling them in Provisoire for about 2 weeks beforehand. They were advertising. It was this big promo thing, I think, in 1986. The smoke towards the end as they're shooting the sort of fireworks towards the gorilla who's banging his chest on top.
Mind you, this was 1986, so it could have just been all of our parents smoking.
Now, you know, like it's an interesting story of a gorilla who may or may not have killed various people. There's an individual wearing a gorilla suit in the movie
who may or may not be guilty.
Who may or may not be guilty, or is it the gorilla, or is it the head of the circus, or is it the trapeze star who's jealous of his trapeze co-star who happens to be female and is in love with the man in the gorilla suit, or the gorilla? We don't know. It's a little touch and go, but I have to say, seriously, as far as 3D movies are concerned, it was the reference of my childhood, and I absolutely recommend it.
Well, a trapeze artist in 3D sounds pretty exciting, but 10, 15 years ago, I went to go see a recreation of the Return of the Creature from the Black Lagoon, which was a 1950s 3D movie, and they did it in a small little repertory house in Westmount, actually, in Montreal, and they'd set it up to do the 3D experience, and that was actually a lot of fun. It was just a small room. Pretty much the screen was the size of like a 8-foot wall. You felt like you were in someone's basement, and these were just fans doing this, and it was a labor of love to recreate the experience. And the next week, they actually did one of the earthquake movies, and they set up the chairs to shake. You know what I mean? So it was just like, it was actually a little bit of fun, and the place closed down after a while, but almost that participative aspect of it, made it fun, and you're kind of laughing into it, and just like these 1950s guys, you know what I mean, just like completely different build when they're on the beach, you know what I mean, than you have today, you know what I mean, just like they're fit, but whatever. Push-ups can only go so far, when you're smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, I guess. And it was a great movie. It was a lot of fun, but in terms of spectacle, I haven't seen much since. I've seen a couple of things. I saw Coraline last year, which had a couple of good pieces, and of course I went to go see Avatar, and as spectacle, which I think cinema should be at a certain level, it was great.
Out of all four of us, I think I've seen the most 3D movies, and that's because I'm a movie critic, and so they forced me into those rooms. But the movie I really want to recommend, however, it's called the 3D Loch Ness Experience. What it is, it's advertised everywhere near the walking tours in Edinburgh. And it's a 3D movie about the Loch Ness Monster. It's about £6, and if you actually want to visit it, I do recommend it. It's on the corner of Royal Mile, just before Northbridge. Anyway, you go in and you expect, like this big Loch Ness Monster extravaganza in 3D and something really campy and cheesy to do in between your walking tours or whatever. No, you sit there, they give you the glasses, you sit down, and then they show you a 3D documentary with just one guy talking in front of a blackboard explaining to you why the Loch Ness Monster could not possibly exist.
And every now and then he throws his chalk at you.
Pretty much. That was pretty much it. It's freaking hilarious. It feels like the perfect tourist trap where they go like, we got you, and we get to say ha-ha in your face, And the documentary is actually pretty good. Well, the thing about 3D that we have to take into account, and you've all mentioned it in your recommendations, is that, hey, 3D has been around long before Real D, and that's something people tend to forget. And the thing is, it has come and has gone several times, 50s, 80s, and whatnot. And is the same thing going to happen now? Is it just a fad, or do you think 3D is here to stay this time?
Well, I think they're going to push for 3D a lot harder just because not many people are going to the theaters.
Go on. No, currently, yes, I think 11% lower in terms of box office gross from this time last year, but historically we're higher than ever before. For the last couple of years, and even all the way through the, quote unquote, recession, ticket prices were through the roof. And they were doing really, really well. We're dropped off right now, and I'll blame it on Iron Man 2,
Oh.
No, but not just that. We've had a lukewarm beginning to the 2010 summer, but in terms of theater going, that's not the issue. It's just what they're looking for, and I guess I disagree, Eric, is Hollywood continually fears change at a certain level, and this is why we see it recycle the same stories, but at the same time, every time something kind of comes to the end, you know what I mean? Miraculously, a new technology comes up and props up the new next 5 years. We had the DVD, we had HD, then we have Blu-ray, and now they've latched on to 3D technology. This is going to be the thing that's going to take them into the future. It's going to be the thing that the pirates aren't going to be able to replicate. And so they're going to start pouring in a lot of money into that.
And yet at the same time, though, they've already started coming up with the first 3D TVs and home entertainment systems, which means it won't take that long for people to be able to duplicate 3D.
I was actually really surprised. I went to Future Shop and tried one of those 3D TVs, fully expecting to be way underwhelmed.
Some of them are quite good.
I put on, there was the 50-Foot Woman Pixar movie.
It's not Pixar. It's DreamWorks.
It's DreamWorks. It's Aliens versus Monsters.
Yes, thank you very much. Saw about
Monsters
10 minutes
versus
of that with the 3D thing, and realized at a certain point had to bat away the various tentacles flying towards my face. Really, so in a sense, there's a part of me that really thinks that the 3D market, there is something to it, even on the home level, which I thought beforehand that.
I agree, Frank. But just again, full disclosure, I work for Subtitles. My company is working towards developing a lot of this technology. And certainly, it's there. It is.
But do you think
my concern as a consumer, though, is that for that third dimension to come out, it comes out on the y-axis. You need to be at the right place to actually experience it. And the reason I had such a massive headache for Coraline was that I was off to the right. And I think half my brain leaked out of my nose, because I had such a bad headache.
Really?
And that's with the large screen, where that access point where you can experience that view is much broader,
Yeah.
If you're in a house, first you have to have a big enough TV. And then basically what? You're going to have your family of 5 sitting on one couch, side by side, like the beginning of The Simpsons,
3D technology, bringing families together.
Exactly, like wedged in like sardines, staring straight forward. You can't have one person lounging on the side because they're not going to see the 3D properly. Whereas, I think it will be something that we're going to see a lot of in the theaters, because it is, by and large, it's going to be something you can see as a community. Event programming is going to be that 3D.
So basically, you're agreeing with my point.
I am agreeing with your point,
yes,
which was wrong in terms of just, the commerce aspect.
At the end of the day, I think only certain types of movies can really be successful 3D movies. We need something where there's a lot of explosions. We need something where there's a lot of action.
I don't know, actually.
About that.
Okay, so you think Casablanca would be a good 3D
Absolutely.
movie?
I think if you made Casablanca 3D, people will flock to it just because, hey, you get to see Casablanca in theaters again. But besides that, I think horror films will be terrific in 3D. Comedies, you have a lot of potential because, again, the thing with 3D is...
Really? Comedy?
Oh, yeah, for sure, man. It's because slapstick in 3D will bring you a new element of surprise because instead of will it come from the left or will it come from the right, it can come from behind, from the front, and all of that. And that brings a whole new dimension of surprise, which slapstick relies on. So
that coming from behind is actually something we didn't even see in Avatar, actually. You're right. I think it was, what's his name, Jeffrey Katzenberg? He was the one that came out and actually slammed the retrofit of Clash of Titans and said this is going to ruin everything. But I think it was him that I read that he was saying that one of the early movies that was retrofitted to basically sell the idea to, studio execs, none of whom, are cutting edge technology moguls, you know what I mean? They've got to be wooed and sold, the new technology, and they don't really know how it works, this and that. So a bunch of people redid 12 Angry Men in 3D, and apparently this is the one that they actually sold to a lot of studios, like this is what 3D could be. And I can actually see that, a drama, doing well in 3D. Will it add to the story? I don't know. But the thing is, does color add? But, we always add color now.
I like black and white a lot more, personally. I think it's gorgeous. Give me a black and white film, and I'm always transfixed by it. And yeah, it'd be great to see a 3D film like in black and white. I would definitely pay like the extra $5 for the experience. But that's another thing. Like for 3D, most of the time, like I'm not willing to fork over the cash. Yeah.
But then you have this whole question of like 3D technology being so expensive in terms of producing it that you almost have to go with certain projects that you know people will be excited about, i.e. action movies, blockbusters.
I think you're limiting it. I think a historical drama in 3D, the 3D would be super. You know, like
especially
you get
for the costumes and
Exactly.
everything
I think
else.
that's what Russell Crowe and
Kate Blanchett were trying to do.
with Robin Hood. I think that would have been awesome in 3D.
But the bows, man, like the arrows, like.
So what? You just want flying things coming at your face, right?
Like I'm interested in what Chris brought up. 12 Angry Men in 3D. I'd be kind of curious to see that because you know what? Like at the end of the day, I'd like to see how 3D performs in a sort of like basic, standard formula movie, just no explosions, no nothing, just
Yeah,
like
but-
a basic drama.
Here's the thing that nobody's mentioning. 12 Angry Men is a good story. And the thing is, most of these 3D films, they don't have a good story.
Up had a terrific story,
Yeah.
and it was in 3D.
But the thing is, like, you know, when we say is 3D just a fad, are we saying that there will be a time when 3D will be the norm and
I doubt
2D
it.
will be the way we look at black and white, for example?
I
That's
guess
the
going
only
back to
question.
what Dimitri said. 3D has been around for a long time. It never takes.
Yeah.
Are we at a different cultural time now where it will take?
Or a technology
And
standpoint, right?
We've all talked about the creative standpoint and the technological standpoint as if they were two separate things. And here's the thing. 3D means a different experience, which means a different cinematic language, which no one has developed yet. And I'm including Avatar. He's integrated it well in terms of technology, but in terms of using it as a storytelling tool, has
Yeah,
not
that's
been
a good
used
point.
at all.
I love the beginning of Avatar with like the float of the spit and this and that. But imagine if it was just black and white, like the beginning of Wizard of Oz, and then it went into 3D, just like Wizard of Oz goes into color.
Yeah.
That would have like been king of the world.
It's just a question of camera movement, the way the frame was used. Every time they would get to a portrait shot and then zoom out wide, you could see things suddenly pop out and it would take you out of the movie. And that's something that if artistically you think about how 3D affects your audience, you would have avoided. And they didn't think of that. And that's the reason I think until they start a new wave of 3D where they actually attack the cinematic language instead of the technology, I don't think it's going to last.
I agree. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm pushing back just because I'm an old fogey or I'm a Luddite or whatever. You know what I mean? But it's just like...
Yes, you are.
I am. Moving on. But it's true. Right now, I feel like you've got a movie and then you just make it 3D. It's not part of the movie.
Yeah.
It's not organic. It's just something that kind of just gets added on after the
No,
fact.
for
Well,
sure.
it brings up the whole like Clash of the Titans things
But
and the
the
whole
thing is-
retroactive
But the thing is, part
right?
of that is the way we think about it too. We're in that transitional period, you know. So
Clash of the Titans.
that was
Retroactive.
retro, but that
Was
was
retro.
that was done within like 6 weeks, practically, like a ridiculously short amount of time.
Well, it was
Like,
a good.
just-
It was a
bad.
yeah. It was a Gaultier movie. I mean, Paul Gaultier. The thing with him is he's as a director is sort of like it's not that he's not talented, and it's not like I'm not interested in what he has to offer. It's just that he generally doesn't offer it. He sort of caves into whatever the producers want. You know.
He's a complete Hollywood director. It's
Yeah.
just like, you know, you hire him to take over for someone else.
Yeah.
And he'll deliver a product. I watched it in 2D because the reviews were so bad about the 3D. And I admit I'm a little bit worried about 3D. Like the 3D's got to have a good review.
Yeah, I saw it in 3D. It was a frustrating experience because I would sit back and then watch scenes with incredible CGI happening and all of that, and no 3D effects. And it's like you have a giant scorpion eating a human being. I want to see that in 3D.
That's weird.
Yeah. And then you'd get to heaven, and then you'd have Liam Neeson going like, "Release the Kraken," and that would be in 3D, and it would be half-assed at that.
No.
That's what we get for following the Greeks. Should have gone Roman. Hercules.
But
At least it would have been a franchise. You got all 12 tasks.
with the way they're making movies now, it would have been like one task per movie.
Yeah. No, the last task would be 2 movies.
Probably.
Once you get to double digits.
But that does bring the whole retroactive thing. Is like, what about movies that already came out in 2D and like making them 3D? Like you've mentioned Casablanca. It's like they've already released Toy Story and Toy Story 2. They've announced Nightmare Before Christmas. They're going to be doing that.
See, that I would want to see.
And retroactive 3D.
Yeah.
Well, the Toy Story movies, I think, were conceived in 3D at a certain level, or so they say. I think animation lends itself to that retroactive
Tremendously.
rework. Whereas Tim Burton filmed in 2D Alice in Wonderland, which recently broke the 1 billion mark. So it's not that it's a bad movie. People like it. And part of the reason it broke the 1 billion mark is because they actually did 3D. But that was retroactively done as 3D. Nonetheless, like the retroactive process, like it really, there's an art to it. Like you've got to take the picture, individually trace everything on the screen, put it on the plane, the Y plane, and actually draw in sides and angles and shading that's not there. So if it's not done well, it's just crap, you know. But if you've got an artist doing it, then I'm sure it could still be good. But it's a lot harder to do with live action. This is why I think a black and white movie might lend itself to 3D manipulation better than color. Just because they don't need to worry, they're worrying with shades of gray, but it's just like at least they're not worrying with shades of color quite as much. There's just one less thing to worry about. So I wonder if it actually might be better.
Well, I admit when I think of the movies I want to see in 3D, they're all black and white movies, the ones that first came up in my mind, and I'm not entirely sure why. Like Citizen Kane, that would be cool, and
Out of the Past.
That'd be
That'd
awesome.
be good.
oh, yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Metropolis was one that came to mind immediately as
Yes.
well. You know, like this. And they were all black and white. I don't know why. Like,
Mind you, Indiana Jones running in front of the boulder from
Rated
Lost Ark.
Yes, my problem with that is that
That's like
it's
the classic
cut
3D.
in it's cut in portrait shot,
Yeah.
so his body would be kind of like floating in the air. It would be weird.
Those bullets flying at you.
Spider-Man might lend itself well to 3D in terms of color. I'm saying part of that is because so much of it is CG developed that I'm sure they've actually got the footage where they can go back and actually do that rounding more
Oh,
easily.
yeah.
You know, is the reason too.
Well, yeah. Although Lucas announced Star Wars as well, I would actually look forward to it. It's sort of like, look, the originals exist on DVD. Just get them. I want to see a spectacle.
Or
And,
VHS.
yeah, the spectacle of Star Wars in 3D. I'm all for that.
Especially Empire Strikes Back.
Well, yeah, the scene in the Senate. Come on.
Right, you're talking about the Revenge of the Sith.
Oh yeah.
and the E.T.
Oh, I'm talking about it.
No, but I agree with that as well, because I mean, like, if anything needs more dimensions, it's Christensen's performance.
Give me some depth, even if it's fake.
The thing is, like, at the end of the day, what do they want? The movie companies want people to come out and watch movies. And I feel that 3D is really treated as a gimmick. It's like, okay, it's like, we can't bring people out normally, but with
But
the
we can.
3D thing...
We can. That's the thing.
the thing, though, yeah. Write a good script and people will come out, and you will have that blockbuster.
Okay, wait, no. Like, there's one thing. Like, we're talking about 3D as a phenomenon and whatnot. Make a good product, and the product will be good. Yes, but I mean, that's a truism. That's not really taking part in the conversation anymore. In the sense of like, you can say that about anything. It's like, do I like spaghetti? Make a good spaghetti. I will eat it. You know, it's like if it's good, of course you're gonna like it.
Yeah, but
defines
it's
it as
one of
good.
those.
You know,
It's
No,
one of those
but yeah,
general
I
truths
feel
that
that-
we have to repeat.
I feel that,
And
like,
I know that the people of Hollywood are listening to this, so hence the reason. This is all pedagogical.
No,
Yes.
but going back to what Dimitri said is people lined up outside the Apple store for the iPad release because they expected a good product. The problem, going back to Jeffrey Katzenberg, with something like Clash of the Titans is 3D is a good product, but if you're going to retrofit something back into 3D that should have been 2D and you're going to do it badly, you're going to ruin the aura of what that good product could be.
No.
And people are going to be less inclined, according to him, to go the next time round to watch the $15 movie when, they could watch it in $10. Or they could watch, or
No, but you
at
see,
that point, they're going to
this
just
is
be...
where I'm going. Like, to me, this notion that, like, a movie's 3D, oh my god, that means I have to check it out. And it's like, it can't just be that. Like, it just can't be, okay, well, this movie could be a 2D movie, but we'll make it a 3D movie because we figure that at the end of the day, we're going to make more money.
But that's
Why?
is what they're
That's
doing.
exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Because they figure $20,000 per minute of footage or something like that to actually do a 2D movie into 3D, they crunch the numbers and they're still going to make more money on the blockbuster per ticket to ship it out to, you know, some tech company in India and quickly do it in 2 months.
Okay.
They're still making money, even
What I'm
though
saying
it's-
is that there's still a novelty factor to it, though. Like, you know,
Yeah.
what are we talking about, like 5 years down the line when people are used to 3D movies?
5 years down the line, when I ride my jetpack to work,
Exactly. Will anything seem all that really
I
interesting?
doubt it, you know, like-
Well, Frank will be teleporting.
Yes.
you'll be one generation ahead. Yeah.
Yes.
No, he won't be. He'll be cursing at the people teleporting and telling them how great walking was back when.
Guys,
We could
guys. There is something to be said
About
about walking.
walking.
I'm just saying. I mean, I'm not even so sure about those podcast things. Like, it's putting strange ideas in my head. Like this whole numerical medium thing with. Anyways, I don't know. It sounds like witchcraft to me.
You know what else is a strange, bizarre new idea? The Electric Boogaloo Factory.
Oh yes, my favorite part.
The Electric Boogaloo Factory, as some of you know, and most of you probably don't because it's been a while since we've done one, is when we take a franchise that doesn't deserve a sequel and try to come up with one of our own. And this week, since it's all about 3D, we decided to do Avatar 2.
Avatar 2 by François Pominville is going to be very simple. See, like the humans, after being like kicked off planet, get really pissed off. So they park a couple of mass drivers around the orbit, carpet bomb the planet for about, I don't know, a month and a half of meteors that are about 2 to 3 times as large as our dinosaur killers. Wait until all life dies on the planet, go down, mine the planet, end of story. Probably not going to happen, but I'm guessing that, you know, if Avatar was real life, that's probably what would happen.
We know that there's probably going to be a sequel. I think it's going to be underwater. I like the idea of the first Avatar where it's basically a paraplegic character who learns to walk in the new form. And going with James Cameron's God complex, I think it would be awesome if he continues with this idea of the person going into the body of the Avatar, basically handicapped at a certain level, and becomes more of themselves in the Avatar form.
So some guy that has Tourette's and then...
I'm thinking blind, to be honest. And then going into a complete submersive three-dimensional environment that would have a little bit of radar, a little bit of sonar, this and that. I think it would be interesting if in addition to the 3D, he brought in an oral component, and you could actually hear things move around in like whale song around you. And
You mean like stereo?
Like whales, like Free Willy whaling.
oh
like,
yeah, help me, because there's going to be an oil spill, and you know the Avatar characters are going to like find a way to plug that hole.
Uh-huh.
Roger
Dimitri,
Pixar.
what's your idea?
The way I see it, it's going to be Avatar 2 Journey to a New World. It's like years after like the first movie, Jake Sully went back to Earth, you know, and now he's presumed dead. And Neridi, like his lover, is like all sad, but she like meets this new guy called Johnny Rolfe. And because he's sent to negotiate with the Na'vi after all the commotion of the first movie. So she goes to Earth as a peace ambassador with Johnny Rolfe, and the spirit of Sigourney Weaver says, "Listen with your heart to the spirit within." She marvels at and so he tries to make her civilized for the hunt ball at the end near like King of the World, James Cameron III. And if the king is convinced, you know, that she's civilized, he'll stop the war. And she calls the king a savage for doing this, and he's like, "You're the savage," and they take her to jail. And then Johnny, desperate, meets a man with a space helmet who helps him free Neridi, like, and they fall in love, and they
I
have
know
a bit
who
of
the guy
trouble.
with the space limit is.
You do?
I do.
Go ahead.
Buzz Lightyear?
It's Jake Sully.
Oh, you've also seen Pocahontas too. And Frank, you can go to the camp.